Well, if Gene is back already in the chat, that means we're back on a Friday, and it's great to be with you guys on this Friday, a Mailbag Friday, where we have a lot to get to as Derek threw out some questions, both in our Discord and also in the Twitter account, and a lot of things just started to flood in about what we needed to talk about today. So we're going to take it light today, have a little fun like we always do. We're certainly here answering some of your questions here on a Mailbag Friday. Derek Bodner and Devon Givens, Brianna here as well, producing the show, all of you in the chat, and plenty of questions have flooded in that we need to discuss. And as you saw with our graphic to open the show, the thumbnail there of the best and worst is certainly one of them that we have to get through. But we have a series of questions that we'll start off with, run through these questions, answer them, see what you all think out there in the chat as well on this Mailbag Friday. Derek, what's up, man? Friday.
Not much.
You made it.
Yeah. Really does feel like that sometimes. We're in the last, I'm still going to call it the dog days of summer. It is still technically summer. I'm going to cling to that until the 20th. Do not take my last few days of summer away.
Still nice outside.
But it's still nice enough where I've got a lot of stuff to do this weekend that you just want to get done before the season starts. So it is great that the weekend's here, but I do feel like it's probably going to end up being a pretty busy weekend.
How many shows do we have? Do we have 2 more weeks? Like 10 more shows? Before training camp?
Yeah, right. Because
next week and then the following week.
Today's the 13th. So
So we have about 10 more shows. So all of that, we're just going to start previewing the season anyway, whether it's around the league previews, certainly previews with the players on the Sixers and what our expectations are. And then we'll get to camp and we'll start to flow through all of that stuff. And when we get to the Bahamas for training camp, stories will really start to show themselves as we are with the team at the Bahamas, having a good time, sitting poolside with those guys and discussing everything else but basketball, I'm sure. So let's get into it, and let's start off with one of the first questions here.
Well, there was a question specifically about the Bahamas there, so maybe we should just start off with that one since we've been talking about that.
Let's do that. Bree is here. She has all this stuff ready to go. So let's start off with the Bahamas question as we begin things here for our Mailbag Friday. So the question came up from one of our people, and this was in Slack. I mean, in the Discord here. So we'll start off with this one with the Bahamas.
And by the way, if you're wondering, Discord, what are they talking about? It is to our diehard members. Go sign up, and you can join the exclusive PHLY Discord. Come hang out with Kyle and myself. Once every 4 or 5 months, Devon will say something as well.
Hello, nice to meet you.
It is a great place to talk basketball, to talk, just general life, video games, photography, whatever your interest is, we've got a channel for it. So come check that out.
Yes, you can get sign up as a member as diehard. You can get the hat that Derek has.
And also you get discounts on merchandise. You get access to all of our written content, everything else. But
I didn't even realize when I wore this is like the Eagles colors in the game. The game's on Monday. Yeah. But hey, you can get this shirt as well as far as the membership goes, becoming a diehard member. All right, let's get to the first question talking about the Bahamas. Morgan asks, all right, honestly, there isn't much to ask right now about the team until camp starts.
We have felt that struggle as well, Morgan.
So here you go, Derek Bodner. What are you or Kyle most excited to see in the Bahamas that has nothing to do with basketball?
I like how Morgan just ignores you because he knows you're not in the Discord anyway and you're not going to see a notification. So you don't even get a chance to answer this. This is your punishment for not being on the Discord.
I'm still around, but go ahead.
I mean, I'm just looking forward to being in the Bahamas. I've never been. I've only ever been in the Caribbean once. I had a great trip to the U.S. and British Virgin Islands. That was fantastic. That was also quite a while ago. So I'm just looking to be there, getting to experience. In all honesty, one of the reasons I did a cruise a long time ago, and one of the reasons I wanted to do a cruise was, all right, I want to go hit a couple different spots, get a taste of it, and then know what to go back to. Now, like the moron, I haven't gone back yet, so maybe that theory was wasted. But this is a little bit like that too. We're going down there for work. We're not going to have a ton of time to explore the island. Right. Yeah. But I can at least get a sense of what I want to go back and see. So I think that's going to be great. Also, we're going to be in the Bahamas in early October. The weather's just going to be so much nicer. I'm not going to lie. I prefer nice weather.
I haven't cheated and looked to see what the weather is around that time, but I'd imagine it's still pretty good.
And also, like, as some people know, I like to take a drone with me, do a little photography, both aerial and regular photography. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
So, Morgan, I'm offended because I will be there with Kyle and Derek, and we typically do, as we figured out and told you all about when we were together in Las Vegas, that we did a lot of stuff together, whether it was going to dinner, going to lunch, the Sphere. We had made a thing out of that.
That's
going
right.
to
That
the
should have been
Sphere.
my answer, shouldn't it? I'm looking forward to hanging out with Devon and Kyle.
Yes.
Yeah. That's.
And the one
Sorry.
thing we didn't do, you and I did, Kyle was writing at this one time. You wrote another day, Kyle wrote another day, and you and I made it to the stadium swim, the pool there at the hotel we were staying at. And I'd imagine we'll have some time to maybe sneak in a little pool time, even if you wanted to write and bring your laptop and sit poolside.
Look, laptops work at the beach.
You can do
work
that.
At the beach.
You can
Yes,
do
they
that.
Do.
So maybe we'll do that. But also, one thing that I did enjoy when Kyle was so tired he couldn't go, when Derek and I explored some stores. I won't say what stores, or just say we went to the stores. And there are probably going to be some shops that we might be able to at least walk to or go explore. And off days, we even saw a member of the Sixers organization while we were out. So we're all going to be there at the same time. We might run into those guys at the shops as well.
My only hope is that a hawk does not steal another one of my drones.
Can't have that part.
I can't do that again.
Can't have that part.
Kill
That's
him.
too expensive. That is way too expensive for that one. All right, let's get to another question. So we hope we answered the question. Morgan, again, I'm offended, but I'll be there too. But we at least I answered, since Kyle is not here, of what I'm looking forward to see. Bree, how about you just tee up whatever one you feel like is the next best question, and we'll just answer it on the fly.
All the pressure on Bree.
Yes, I am. So
Dang,
Bree,
that's harsh.
go for it. All right. What is this one? JShem90 says, would the NBA ever have international tours, since we're going to Bahamas? International tours is part of the regular season. Basketball is already a more international game, so I'm not sure how much sense it would make versus how the NFL does it, and thinking sending teams to play maybe 4 or 5 games over the course of a couple of weeks. That's a great question, JShem90 there, and we appreciate you sending in that question.
I would be, with the exception of Mexico,
which they've done.
And they have a G League team, the Capitanes in Mexico City, with actually Jaleel Okafor was playing there for a little bit. I don't know if he still is. With the exception of Mexico, I would be surprised. There's just like the NFL is one thing because you have that week in between games, and they try to give you an extra day or two on each end after that trip. With the NBA, it's just like that jet lag would be a much bigger deal because you do have to have a quicker turnaround. And if you end up taking a week in between games, then the rest of the season and the schedule just becomes so condensed that it becomes a competitive disadvantage for whatever teams play over there. I wouldn't mind seeing it, but I think they'll probably end up sticking to preseason games overseas like we have seen here in recent years, and maybe at most something in Mexico, but I would be surprised if it goes beyond that.
Especially when you look at the NFL, they only play once a week.
Yeah.
You see when the Eagles play on a Friday, they don't play again until Monday. Now, Green Bay, they play on Sunday, but still, it's just a day apart of that for the NFL. So it makes more sense because of when you talk about the turnaround time.
Logistically, it's just a lot easier.
Right. It's just it's way more feasible for them to do it with the NFL because of the amount of games that they play and how much time is between each game. They're not going to have them play on a Sunday or a Monday in another country and then come back and have them play on a Thursday night. They're just not going to do that. They're going to make sure that it's Saturday or Sunday, or quite frankly, Derek, make sure that they are that's their bye week, to give them that time off to recover because of the travel, because of the jet lag, and all of those things. So for the NBA, I agree with you. Outside of Mexico, or just deciding that they do have to go to a place like the Bahamas and just there's an arena that they can play in some of these short distance travel places that are across the waters that they can get to, you're just not going to see it. Because even when you have the in-season tournament now, you see that everybody's off once they're eliminated from it and they go to the Las Vegas part of it for the semifinal and then the championship. Now they're doing that where they're just giving everybody off based on their schedule. So I doubt that we see it unless it's Mexico or something way, way shorter that Derek just talked about.
I agree.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's very unlikely. Very unlikely. And heck, again, that Vegas thing, are they worried about Vegas? Not so much, but we'll see. We'll see. All right, next question here on our Mailbag Friday as Bree cues us up for yet another one. Jolly Roger, what's the best case upside for Go Get 'em Rick this year? Non-delusion division. So that means we can't yell, Go get him, Rick. For this question, we have to take that hat off and just simply look at Ricky Council the fourth.
I think he's saying projecting him to become Vince Carter this year is out of the question. He's saying that is delusional.
Yeah, so putting that out there already, we appreciate that, Jolly Roger. What is Ricky's upside and what is the real? Now, look, we talked briefly about it when we discussed 1% better yesterday on the show, and we brought up Ricky Council for a very good reason, because there's a good chance that he may find his way on the floor and get some minutes, but there's also a very good chance that Nick Nurse just doesn't want to play a younger player like that, and he does not see the floor, even with his athletic talent, his ability to play defensively, where we see some growth, maybe some upside there from some of the stuff that we saw this summer, and even him working in the Rico Hines runs that he's been doing. The upside is just simply like we discussed yesterday. Derek mentioned his outside shooting. If he can be a knockdown threat from the outside at a decent clip, somewhere between 35 to 37%, where it's league average. We can't ask him to go out there and be Seth Curry, not Steph Curry. We can't go out there and be Seth Curry. And look, quite frankly, Seth Curry has been in the tops over the history of the NBA with his ability to shoot from behind the three-point line. So for Ricky Council, it starts with the outside shooting of, can he be a real threat, being out there and being a real threat out there on the floor with Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and then some of the players that are also coming in off the bench, where he is now forcing Nick Nurse to force his hand to stay on the floor and also receiving those passes frequently from his teammates, because he's become more of a reliable shooter out there. Secondly, would be the defensive part, where it starts and ends, where if he's able to show himself, show his chops defensively, where he flashed at times last season and is able to translate that into meaningful minutes that forces Nick Nurse's hand over KJ Martin, over some of the other veterans that may be on the bench with him, coming in with the rest of those guys. That is what the real upside could look like with Ricky Council. Now, if we're talking minutes, I would say right now, look at maybe 12 to 15 to start if he earns minutes. But if he has those games like we saw against the Washington Wizards, later in the game against the San Antonio Spurs, where they had that double overtime and he made that great run in that 5-minute stretch, making that great pass to Nick Batum for that outside shot that he made to really seal the deal for the Sixers to win without Joel Embiid and others for that particular game. 12 to 15 maybe at max, or let's even just say 10 to 12 if he's going to get some regular run. But if he has a game where he's really playing well and forces Nick Nurse's hand to stay on the floor, that's what we're looking at logically, not Vince Carter coming out there as we look at that guy in Ricky Council.
In terms of like role, just working his way into the regular rotation would be the max realistic upside, I think. Like, I don't expect him to develop enough to become a starter, in part because there's a lot of good players ahead of him. But if he can just make enough shots and be good enough defensively as a team defender that he can crack the regular rotation, that is your realistic upside this year. Anything else above that is gravy. Doesn't mean it's necessarily impossible, but that's, I think, a realistic expectation, is that he beats out KJ Martin. Maybe he beats out Yabusele, either because Yabusele disappoints or because Ricky takes an unexpected jump and is just able to be a regular part of the rotation by the end of the season. Like after January, maybe he springs into that rotation and never gives it up. I think that's realistic as an upside.
Yeah, and this is a great conversation to have with that question because of where we were last season. Although I didn't start the season with you guys, but even when
I'd forgotten.
No,
that.
You forgot about that? Damn, I got to stop bringing that up. But even when I got here and we all discussed it,
it'll be like 2028. And I'll be like, you remember when you skipped out on the first 3 months of this company, Devon?
We'll be 4 years into our shows together, and he'll still be bringing it up. But 4 years into our shows, that means we've been doing damn good job of keeping this going. But, I mean, the fact that we are even, Derek, talking about this as an undrafted player and realistically looking at him and having fans of Ricky Council ask the question, as an undrafted player, how raw he is as a player, and he's still not a complete product out there on the floor where people are excited about that. We just talked about where he has the most favor among the Sixer fans outside of where Tyrese Maxey is, of course, being number one, but the guy that has the arrow pointing at him of, I can't wait to see what he's able to do. That's pretty damn good for an undrafted guy that we had a lot of questions about last season.
For sure. As an undrafted guy, he has already exceeded expectations. Like, if you had an expected value of an undrafted signing, He's exceeded that. Now it's a question of whether he can establish himself as a regular NBA player. And when you take someone with an undrafted spot like that, give him a two-way contract, you're not really, like, especially as an undrafted guy, you can use a two-way slot on someone that's the equivalent of a 4A player. We've mentioned that a lot with Doughton, but that would be a veteran. When you take an undrafted player with a two-way spot, you're trying to find somebody who has talent, who has upside that haven't been able to realize it yet. And you think that in your program, you can get them to a spot that nobody else in the league believes they can be. Ricky has done that so far.
How surprised are you that he's the one that popped and not Turk Smith?
Ricky always, I think, had more upside, just because you're talking about the difference of a 6'7" guy who's built like a tank versus a 6'2" guy, whatever, that's 165 soaking wet. So there's always a chance that if Ricky could figure it out, he could pop. I did like Turk's skill set in terms of specifically off the pick and roll. I thought he was pretty good with the live dribble and had some range, but he had so little margin for error that it doesn't stun me.
Yeah.
Like when you're that size, you have to be an elite shooter, and he just kind of looked like, yeah, he might be able to shoot someday. That's not good enough at that size. I wouldn't mind Turk still having a two-way spot, but they went in other directions.
Go get him, Rick.
There's actually a couple of players on the two ways that I would take Turk over right now, but we don't need to get into that. We're trying to, be optimistic.
That's fair. Go get him, Rick, and we'll see what happens there. All right. We'll come back. We'll get to the rest of the questions because there are a ton. Bree will surprise us with what they are as we come back here on a Mailbag Friday, PHLY Sixers Podcast style, yes, here with Derek and myself. And we have to tell you about, hey, you're relaxing, you're chilling. It's the weekend. You're getting ready for some football.
I feel like Coors has to have a Friday ad slot all the time because I am sitting here counting down the minutes until we can choose chill.
When you can choose chill
it's been a long week.
After a long week, whether it's a long week podcasting and writing like Derek did, or all of you having to sit behind a desk and do the things that you do, or working outside, whatever it might be. Whatever it was that made your week maybe a little bit difficult, where you finally saying, you know what? All right, it's time to take my foot and put it up and get a nice Coors Light, pop that can open, and get after it with the cold Coors Light and deciding to choose chill. So if that's what has been really getting to you all week, maybe you're having some things done at home, some work, and you're like, all right, the workers are out this week. This is frustrating. I just need to sit back and chill and pop a cold Coors Light, watch some college football, watch the local baseball team, get ready for the Sunday slate of professional football as well. Coors Light are great people again. Well, so those sporting events, how cool is it that the mountains on the bottles and the cans turn blue when they're as cold as the Rockies? At the sporting events that we just laid out overall, the memorable things that you enjoy over the weekend with your loved ones as we still have this good weather, sitting out back, maybe lighting a little fire out back there at the fire pit and popping those cold Coors Lights for you. The mountains turn blue. You have the can next to you. You have your cooler next to you, whatever it might be. That's what it is for you. Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smoother finish. When you embrace the chill mindset, it's a good time to choose chill and crack open a cold Coors Light. Coors Light is mountain cold refreshment. Crisp and refreshing as the Colorado Rockies. Make the most of the times that you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
We also want to tell you about Rite Aid because fall allergies are real and they can begin as early as August. And last into November.
I had a sneeze attack before he left to come into work.
Yes, I did.
I had to take my medicine.
The main culprits are ragweed and mold. Other possible allergens include plants and dust mites, and then pet dander and fur are also possibilities. Allergic reactions occur when your body misidentifies a substance, such as pollen, as harmful to the body, and then your immune system releases histamines to fight off the allergens. These same histamines are also the cause of your allergy symptoms, such as a runny nose, itchy or watery eyes, or wheezing. That's why antihistamines, medication that suppress the amount of histamine in your body, are often the first line of defense to treating your allergy symptoms. Here's what you can do to get relief during allergy season. Sign up for Rite Aid Rewards emails at riteaid.com/rewards to receive email pollen alerts for your area. Use a dehumidifier, shower frequently, and especially at night before you go to bed after you've been out all day. Check pollen counts on your weather app of choice. Keep windows closed and use an air conditioner. And then here are some of the over-the-counter options that are available at your local Rite Aid. There is a nasal rinse to help flush out your nasal passages. When symptoms flare up, try the antihistamines I mentioned earlier. And in order to be proactive, 1 to 2 weeks before pollen allergies are expected to be high, try a nasal corticosteroid. If that's still not enough relief, you can always ask your Rite Aid pharmacist for recommendations on ways to get relief during allergy season.
All right. Welcome back, PHLY Sixers Podcast. Yes, I had a sneeze attack, but I did take my allergy medicine that I got from Rite Aid to calm things down, and hopefully it lasts through the next 40 or so minutes of our show. So I'm not doing that. I did have one from Twitter that I wanted to throw in. Not one that Bree has. One that I had.
Came in after we.
Came after, yeah. And it was this one from Charles, SCK8182, says, talk about the god-awful Sixers bench the Sixers guards have besides Maxey are awful.
It's harsh. That's harsh. Look, I'm not, and we're going to have a section here where we rank some of Daryl Morey's moves. And some of those guard signings are going to be lower on my list. And I certainly agree that and we've spent a good amount of time talking about, like, you really need Ricky and, Kelly and some of these shooting question marks to improve their shot so that you can keep that size on the floor and not bring in some of these smaller guards that I think we all share some concerns about. I'm not going to say that they are god-awful. Like, I've liked Kyle Lowry a lot, but at this stage of his career, you don't know how much he has left. And also, you don't love putting a 6-foot guard next to Tyrese Maxey.
Yep.
Jared McCain, I think a lot of people are rooting for. And I wrote an article while we were out in Vegas detailing, why you shouldn't be all that concerned about the shots and the work he was putting in. That being said, he's an undersized guard who is going to struggle at times defensively, not necessarily through any fault of his own, because I think he gives good effort and I think he's generally a pretty smart defender, but there's just a physical limitation to him. So there's certainly, I think a lot of concern with some of the options. That's in part why I want some of these wings to establish themselves, so you have a little more flexibility in that regard. And Eric Gordon is probably the last one. And I like Eric Gordon's game, but he's another one who's 35 and has played a lot of minutes, and you just don't know how much he has left.
SB Cole says he's going to be underrated.
I'm not going to say
Gordon.
He could be. And like I said, I like Eric Gordon's game, and I like the depth he has on his shot and the range he has on the shot. But he's not 28 anymore. It's fair. So I think there's certainly more uncertainty on the guards alongside of Tyrese Maxey. We've talked about a lot, like we spent a couple of shows ago talking about potential in-season acquisitions, and a lot of people immediately go towards the power forward spot. And what I said in that show is, like, I have as much interest in a bigger guard as I do in a power forward.
One of the guards you talk about a lot is Bogdanovich from Atlanta.
Yep. So I don't necessarily disagree with the sentiment that there's a lot of risk there. I'd probably stop short of calling him god-awful or however he phrased it, but I do agree with that there's some concern there.
Money Mars says 35 is the new 28.
I wish.
Hey, man. I mean, look, playing with a different team, different type of big man, the young guard that Tyrese Maxey is, Paul George, even though we know what they had talent-wise in Phoenix, the whole Bradley Beal thing just threw things off, especially with him being out for so long, the injury, not having a true point guard on that team for a long time. That stuff plays a part in it. And he's playing out of position, having to play that 2-guard with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, having to run the offense and all of that stuff. Maybe that's a little bit different because there are more defined type of actual positional players when you have point guards on this roster. With Eric Gordon, he's able to do exactly what he needs to do as a guy to just simply run around the perimeter and knock down those shots. So we'll see. Speaking of the best and the worst, as we talk about, how about we throw that one up there as the question to get things going here about Daryl Morey's offseason. It's from our GM,
who?
Vince.
Vince who?
Pellegrini. Never heard of him?
Never heard of him.
I'll introduce you to him at another time. Taking into consideration here the contracts, length of deal, age of player, opportunity costs of not getting other players, what would you say are the best moves made by Morey this year?
All right. So I'll start this off. And again, he's asking you to take into account everything. Opportunity cost of the contract, cost to acquire, everything. Not just like Paul George is the best player, so he's the best move. So it's a little more detailed than that. What I'll say is I think the best move that Daryl Morey did this summer is signing Tyrese Maxey to that 4-year, $200 or 5-year, $200 plus maximum contract extension. Now, your response to that is, well, Derek, he just gave him the most he could. How could that possibly be the best deal? And the reason I'm listing that as the best, it's not really about giving him the contract now. It's about not having given him the contract extension last summer. Because he was able to talk Tyrese Maxey and his agent into that, you were able to sign Paul George. Whereas if they had just had to give Tyrese Maxey that extension last summer to keep him happy, you wouldn't have had the cap space to go about what you did this summer. So I'm going to list that move, even though really what I'm doing is giving him credit for last summer's negotiation. I'm giving him that as a top spot. And then the second, and I know this is where Vince doesn't agree with me because I've had this exact conversation with Vince in the studio. My next best move, and this is boring, is signing Paul George. And again, it's the one that took the least amount of thought. Yes, Paul George, I will give you that max contract. That's probably about all the thought Daryl Morey gave to it. But
maybe
that is the one that's going to have the most impact. And even if Paul George ends up being overpaid, which, I mean, he's 34, there's a very good chance that in a year or two he's going to be overpaid. It's going to have the biggest impact on the franchise. And because of the way the salary cap is, because of the way Tyrese Maxey's contract was structured, this was the only year they're going to be able to make a splash like that. Being able to succeed on that splash is going to have more impact than any other move we're going to talk about here. So that's sort of why those are the two moves that I list at the top.
Agree with you certainly on the Maxey one because of how he did it, because I was really after Daryl Morey last summer. Like, wait a minute, as Tyrese Maxey, I'd be ticked off of not getting my contract done when I see my peers, the guys from my draft class, and I'm the 21st pick. I need to be rewarded like everyone else was because of what I did. But to get him to do that, to be able to stay patient, including not just him, but Rich Paul, who we know can be a hard bargain when it comes to being able to negotiate for his players and getting their max out of them. They were patient. They were able to wait and sit there and say, we'll wait for the betterment of the team. We'll sit back and allow that to happen. That was a pretty darn good move. And then you don't waste it the next offseason because you follow up by getting Paul George and everything else that went down the line. And that'll lead me into one that we talked about. Everybody liked it. There were some questions about certain things, and that's identifying a true backup center for this basketball team. Where Derek just wrote a story earlier in the week about the minutes, the non-Embiid minutes when he's out on the floor. Not just games that he misses, but the games that he plays and he comes off the floor and then they lose, what did you say, 8 point? There's an 8-point difference when he comes off the floor. Now with Andre Drummond, although he's not an offensive force like some of the other backup bigs in the NBA, we know what he does because he's been a former All-Star. We know how he rebounds the basketball and the things that he does there on that end of the floor to get you those defensive rebounds where they're not getting the offensive rebounds, especially after we saw how things went with the New York Knicks. But also, let's not forget, he's a darn good offensive rebounder, too, on the other end of the floor to create those second chance opportunities for the 76ers that we saw so much where we were kicking the table and kicking everything else because the Sixers were allowing that to happen against themselves. So Andre Drummond, even with the cost value of dipping into their salary cap, Derek, it didn't really matter. It didn't hurt them in the long run, where that was one of the earlier moves where we were wondering how they were going to do other things. They were still able to make some really good moves despite the fact that they went into some of their cap space there to dip in a little bit more than you thought it might be for Andre Drummond on a 2-year deal. So I would say Andre Drummond is one with the costs, because while early on you might have thought it might have went against them, ultimately it did not, because they were still able to execute so many other things by going out there and doing what they did and putting together the team later on where those players and the agents saw what Daryl Morey did with the Paul George move, Eric Gordon, and, of course, Andre Drummond. Everything else then fell in line where the other players were good enough with this roster to come in and still seeing a spot for them to be able to work.
Yeah, I remember when we did a reaction show at the time, I was a little concerned with the 2 years on Drummond. I wanted that at a minimum because I wanted to save, preserve that $5 million in cap space. But they were able to get Kelly. Part of my concern there was that I didn't know if Kelly would take the room mid-level exception. So since Kelly ended up taking that, 2 years, $16 million or whatever it was, that is, that ended up being okay.
Credit to him too, Kelly Oubre, because we don't know what other teams were offering, but he took a 1+1. What did he get, about $8 million?
$8 million, yeah.
$8 million this year, and if he again performs well enough, this team advances to the third round Eastern Conference Finals, maybe even to the NBA Finals. And again, he's a big part of that. He might cash out next summer, opt out, and then cash out. Whether it's coming back here or going elsewhere, he might really benefit from this team having a big-time year.
The other one I would highlight early on is the KJ Martin contract, just in part because you will have that as a trade chip.
And he was on, Derek was on this one from the very beginning.
No, yeah.
You were on it.
I was going to make a joke about myself, but I'm going to just let that one slide. But you kind of expect, coming from the salary cap guy, that, there are so many teams that have avenues like this where they can basically engineer a little bit of flexibility, and they miss those opportunities. So for him to give him that contract and be able to, basically come up, engineer a move at the deadline that wouldn't have been available to him. It wasn't the most creative thing in the world. Like I said, I was calling it out, and if I can call it out, NBA GM should be able to notice it as well. But the fact that they didn't let that opportunity slip, I give them credit for that. In terms of players, though, let's because we don't want to run through everyone, Reggie Jackson, like all these, but just give the next highest player on the list, and then maybe the one you're concerned about the most. So I'm going to start off with...
this is best worth signing?
Yeah, I'm going to start off with best. And I feel like Kelly, I think deserves mention right in there with Andre. I think that 2 years, $16 million basically is a good number. Of the minimums, though, like the players they took a chance on down low, Yabusele I like, just because I like boom or bust type players, which we will get to that pretty quickly. The one move that concerns me, and I hate saying this because we got to know the kid a little bit. He seems like a really good kid, but it was the same reaction we had on draft night. I'm just a little worried about McCain being a fit, most specifically because I'm just a little worried about defensively him holding up next to Tyrese Maxey. If he can't hold up long-term, then I wonder whether or not that was the right use of what is a really high draft pick. But like I said, I like the shooting. I do think the shooting will eventually come around. Everyone I talk to says, raves about his work ethic. And also, just watching him, we saw the work ethic. So I'm rooting for him, but I have my concerns. And because the Sixers so very rarely have a draft pick that high, I wonder if trading it or maybe taking Connect or any other option. I worry about that one.
That's probably mine to go along with you. I was going to go to Yabusele as the last one, but not the one that didn't like, the one that we did like, and bring up the Jared McCain piece of figuring out where that one might have been. If I go a little bit more, just to go a little bit deeper, is the Keve Aluma part of just seeing what that might have looked like as a two-way player and giving him an opportunity to see, just because of what we saw, getting to know him as you talked about, but what we saw there in the Summer League stage. And was there something there for that extra size to have somewhere with, we like David Jones for the scoring, Justin Edwards for the upside also, and the Jeff Doughton piece of it because he's a veteran and you can have him come in and help out as a point guard, as a combo guard, to be out there if someone like Kyle Lowry, Reggie Jackson misses a game, whether for load management or night off or injury related, and Jared McCain's not ready, you understand it. The Keve Aluma part, why not?
Yep.
Why not? Especially when we're talking about the size, being able to play at that 4 spot. Don't know about the 5 spot more once you get to the big team, but at least playing the 4 maybe next to someone like Drummond, because we saw that he can stretch out a little bit, be effective there. His passing was pretty good, things of that nature. That would be the only one that I would say. And when I bring that one up, I'm reaching because that's how good of an offseason it was.
We didn't even mention Caleb Martin, which is pretty stunning. He should have been up towards the top at a little over $8 million a year. I think he's going to have a big impact on the squad.
Yep.
So I think that was a really good move. The two moves that concern me a little bit, I don't love Reggie Jackson's fit on the squad. Just don't love it. That one concerns me a little bit, and I'm worried that they're going to end up using Lowry too much.
Now, why not Reggie Jackson? Just because you saw how he was adaptable with the Clippers coming off the bench. He was adaptable when he got to the Denver Nuggets, helped him win the championship. With the little bit that he did, he was there for that championship. And he played on that squad, traded at the trade deadline, but he is a veteran that this is not the OKC Reggie Jackson anymore where you have problems, or even the Detroit Pistons Reggie Jackson where you're worried about scoring so much. He has a role now.
Yeah, a lot of it's defensively next to Maxey. And if he's playing next to Maxey, I'm not necessarily sure what kind of role he would play. I guess in the 10 minutes per game that Maxey's on the bench, he's a solid option. I just would have liked somebody maybe who has a little bit of a chance to play alongside of Maxey too. But it's minimum contract. So I never like to nitpick these too much. But you only have so many roster spots.
It's such a good offseason.
I think he had an A offseason. So
Yes.
if we got to rank best to worst, the worst still aren't going to be disasters. They're just the minimum salary contracts I have the most concern about, which when you phrase it like that, I think he had a pretty good offseason.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get to a couple of questions here, but we want to tell you about a couple of things here at home base. We're 1 year in, folks, and we appreciate your support. We love being here with you, celebrating our 1 year anniversary yesterday as PHLY Sports, PHLY Sixers, Eagles, Phillies, Flyers, Union, now Penn State, and the cheap seats with the gang, all the writers that are here. Become a diehard member. We've been trying to tell you for a while. Make sure you do so. You get the cool merchandise that Derek and I have on right now. Val has had some. We saw her out at the Rump Classic. She had her gear on. Others have shown that they've gotten some gear as well. When you become a diehard member, you're able to take advantage of a lot of stuff, like 20% off of events, dope merchandise for all the teams. I have the Eagle shirt on in the green, right? It's a Philly thing. Let me move the mic a little bit while I talk, and you can still see it. And it just works out that way. And then you got the hat, right? You got the normal snapback hat. Derek has the dad hat on. It's the favorite of Breeze. Also, you have the trucker hat. You have the golf hat in white that Derek has also. All the T-shirts, all the hoodies that we have that are available to you. Post-game shows, podcasts, and live shows on every team, as you know. Premium written content at allphly.com from Derek earlier this week. Kyle Neubeck as well in the Sixers. Mishkov mania going on. Charlie is just a maniac right now himself, writing all these stories about what's going on. They have a game tonight, by the way.
Yeah.
Make sure you tune in for all the written content there, allphly.com. And the only way to read it is becoming a diehard member. Charlie was so kind and so excited about everything that's happening with them and their young guys getting into camp early. He wrote a piece and gave it to everybody so you can get an idea of what you get behind that diehard membership that you do certainly have. Tickets to the at allphly.com/events. Giveaways like we will have with this upcoming watch party for the Birds Monday night, hosting Atlanta for their true first home game, not in Brazil, in South Philly, and that will be right here in Philadelphia. The official PHLY tailgate. Jamie, Roy will be there with you also, and they will be at Uptown Beer Garden for the Monday night tailgate, 5 to 8. Make sure you get in. Miller Lite specials as well. Become a diehard member. Join the team. You're already a part of the team, joining our shows, being here with us. Sign up and become a diehard member. Discord that Derek says I'm only in there every 4 to 5 months. It's a good visit for me that every 4 or 5 months. So sign up for the diehard, all of that. And also, make sure you're streaming us on Roku. Also, we're here on YouTube. We're also here on Roku TV. You can stream us live every day. We have a PHLY channel. Search PHLY on the Roku channel in that search bar, that search engine. Now streaming on Roku as well. Derek looked nice. Looks very nice on Roku TV. I was watching it.
I don't look nice anywhere.
Happened to be in the rotation there, and
that has never happened
Derek
in my life.
Bodner. A lot of camera time this week. Last week, a lot of camera time for Derek Bodner. I was off last week. Kyle's off this week. A lot of camera time for Derek Bodner. Roku TV. He's very clear. Also on YouTube. Very clear.
Just never go 4K. That's my one request. You can never go 4K.
Let's go to our next question, Bree, on VC says we're in high demand there on television. Yes. And in the Discord. I'll be there. How about this one from Twitter? Who do you think will surpass expectations most and miss expectations the most? Basically, who are you boomer bust guys? Thank you for the question there.
So I feel like this is tough because I feel like everybody has high expectations for everyone.
For everyone.
So,
well, I mean, you just gave a bust where you felt like the Reggie Jackson one just is not a good fit.
Yeah. But I'm not sure. He's one of the ones that I'm not sure expectations are all that high on. I do worry a little bit. This is going to be weird because he's one of the guys I'm most excited about. But it's also that there's so much enthusiasm for him that it might be a little bit too much. I might say Yabusele is the one who might come up short. Not because I expect him to not translate. I actually think he has a chance, and that's why I'm excited about him. But there's so much excitement over a 14th guy on the roster, in part because he's unknown those are the archetypes that I think always have a chance to disappoint. Just because, I mean, like, we have people talking about him like, should he be elevated to the starting lineup?
Already. I haven't even seen him.
Let's see if he can make an NBA 3 before we do that. So I think there's just a little bit, and I get it. He's the unknown. There's the athleticism there. He's one of the few, if not the only, real power forward on the roster. You saw him play in the Olympics. There's a lot of excitement. I find it exciting because there is the unknown, but because there's that unknown factor, he's one of the ones that has a chance of not meeting expectations.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I mean, because, again, we're talking about a 14th man. Look how important he is, how excited people are about this
that's
one.
the thing. There's just it's an unnatural level of excitement for a 14th roster spot.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
How about you? What do you got?
I guess for me, the one that...
And the same thing, Ricky. Like, Ricky's... And really, I guess what we're talking here are the two boom or bust players. I think Ricky's probably the other boom or bust player. Both of them are boom or bust. And depending on where you fall in your preseason boom or bust scale, depends on whether they could exceed or come up short of expectations.
Yeah, so the one I'll go to is... I'll go to... Look, these other guys, we know who they are. It's just a matter of now fitting with this new team that they signed on for. And one of them I'll go with is, we've seen him as a very good player, but we had one yesterday saying, why is he a starter? I think it was Mar who said, why is he a starter? And that's Caleb Martin, because he was benched in Miami. He wasn't starting at every game for the Miami Heat in some of those for reasons that maybe offensively, not making enough shots, defensively, not being as good as we've seen in the past. And while you got him as a great contract, the one thing about that great contract is the numbers were said to be much higher. Why didn't he take it?
Yeah.
He expected to get it somewhere else. Was there something wrong with Miami that he didn't want to take it? Or he just decided that, you know what? I'll go get this. I'll go take this money. I'll be a part of it again. An opportunity to win a championship as a contender. Maybe he saw things ahead of time with the Miami Heat that wasn't going to be as good as it has been, and he decided that this was the spot. But is he a traditional starter, especially when we're talking about three wings, starting with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid? And while we like it, there are others who do not. So that's why I say Caleb Martin. Could that one be a boom or bust where we see him as a starter, and maybe he is relegated to the sixth-man or seventh-man role because of the fact that he does go to the bench and he works better there. But as a starter right now, for a lot of people, he shouldn't be in the starting lineup, and they should not have those two other wings with the other three All-Stars.
And because he's the one role player who got the 4-year deal, he's the one who's going to have the most expectations. So I think people will be a little bit more critical of him than they will pretty much any other signing. So I think that's probably fair.
Yeah, so that's why I bring it up. And again, just to be clear, we like him as a fifth starter because we are very, very curious to see how it works with those three wings. They have a plethora of wings now that, at least in the starting lineup, that
never happened.
We haven't seen.
We made a big deal last year when they were like, oh man, they have Robert Covington.
Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, Nick Batum.
These are real wings. Yeah.
Absolutely. Real wings. Not, as Kyle was here, not buffalo wings.
Yeah.
I mean, boneless wings.
This is Moriarty's here. This is the good stuff.
Yeah, not boneless wings. But, you know, Kyle, we're not here. We're not going to. No, we'll roast. They are wings.
No.
They're wings because they're called wings. You can't change it. They're wings. All right, let's go to the next question. Bree, what you got for us? As Matt Talks Ball here with us on Twitter says, looking at Nick Nurse's coaching style, Derek, how might his approach evolve to better utilize the strengths of the current roster compared to last season? Thank you for that tweet, Matt.
Yeah, and this goes back to the big wings. Have you ever had Moriarty's wings, by the way? They're enormous. So like when I say big wings, like
so where are they?
Like 12th and Chestnut or somewhere around there. Walnut, maybe, I forget. They're huge. They're humongous.
So we have to get those.
So when we keep talking about these big wings, it just keeps like that pops into my mind.
Bree, we got to go get those.
Anyway.
All right.
When I keep talking about these wings, like that allows Nick Nurse to be so much more aggressive. And I think when you start looking at it, like one of the things Paul Reed did last year, and I said a lot that he was misused because they had him in a drop when he should have been a switch center, but he gave you that option to switch. Now you don't have that. You have, Drummond, who plays in a traditional deep drop, and that's pretty much all he can do. You need your wings to be able to help and recover a lot more, to cause a lot of chaos like they did when they had Siakam and OG and all these people in Toronto. I think now Nick Nurse has a chance to play more of that hectic style of defense than he did in previous years. And I think he might need to play more of that because you've got to make up for Drummond's deficiencies as a pick and roll defender. So I think you're just going to see a lot more activity from the wings, especially when especially when Embiid's off the floor, and even when Embiid's on the floor, because you don't want him coming up the level of the screen all the time. It just wears him out. You want to keep him fresh. So I think you're going to see a lot more activity, take a little more chances, might end up giving up more three-pointers than in previous seasons, but I think they'll do a better job of getting out on the break.
Yeah, and look, those three-pointers are going to be available. Long rebounds sometimes, though, so you get those opportunities to get out and run. And with those athletes that you have, really good chance of finishing on the other end, whether it's from behind the three-point line or going to the basket, with four of your starters specifically, where Embiid might be the trail man on a lot of those. But some really good opportunities with those types of players. And I think the utilization would also, as you just talked about, and we just mentioned with the wings in general, just being able to have those wings and the flexibility that we saw with him in Toronto and how he likes to mix and match his lineups, where if we are to believe that there are going to be at least two on the floor, not always two of Oubre, Martin, or George, but if there are, and you include Ricky Council, add in there KJ Martin and Eric Gordon. Even though he's a guard, he's more of the wing because of his shooting ability, where he's now going to do a lot of off the dribble stuff, getting to the basket. That's a lot of flexibility with your lineup, with what you're able to do to really throw things off with the opposition and how they're going to have to try to defend. So being able to see the Toronto Nick Nurse and how he was able to use and mix and match those types of players and extend his defense, where now he has three guys for sure. And he trusts Maxey now to extend that defense, where we saw Kelly Oubre doing it for sure against the Knicks and Jalen Brunson in the playoffs. Now he's going to be able to have Caleb Martin extending that defense 75 feet away. Same thing with Oubre, Paul George sometimes, and then Tyrese Maxey as well. I like that part too, and we all like defense as well. When we're able to see that, I want to see that. Yeah. I want to see, can they cause some havoc, force some 8-second backcourt violation turnovers, and get those steals where they have to make a pass across the floor where one of those other guys are now streaking in the passing lane and getting that and going the other way for a finish. I want to see some of that stuff, and that'll also, especially when you're at home, that excitement in the building, get the crowd going. Next thing you know, you're on a 7-0 run, 9-2 run, timeout, Cleveland, because of how you extended that defense and put that pressure on those teams. So that's what I'm looking forward to, utilization of the wings and the flexibility of those lineups there.
Yep. Agreed.
All right, let's get to another one here, Bree, on this Mailbag Friday here. David Leach says, what is connective passing? We always talk about it. Kyle, yourself, myself, we talk about it. Hear the term over and over the last year, but not sure how it differs from passing in general. Can you share an example of that? Thank you.
So,
David.
A lot of guys like Harden will have a lot of creativity, right? Like he'll pound the ball, run a pick and roll, but he's so creative with it, he will find passing angles that a lot of people won't. It's just an innate sense of vision and timing that makes him an elite passer. Connective passing isn't really about that. It's making the right reads quickly. Best way I can describe it, I'll call this disconnected passing. And don't get on me for saying his name, because I'm criticizing him. Tobias Harris. When you get the ball, you pump fake, you jab step, you take 3 seconds off the clock, and then you move it to the next station. That's not connective at all. He's not connecting one part of the play to the next, one part of the action to the next. He's disrupting the flow of the offense. Connective passing is more, all right, I got the ball. I don't have a obvious shot or drive. I'm going to move it, make the right pass quickly. It's not necessarily quick, or it's not necessarily super creative, but it keeps the offense flowing.
And I'll add to that, going to Joel Embiid, getting double teamed. If he is seeing the double team happen before they actually get there to really set up for their double team, that trap, and he gets the ball out, ball goes to Tyrese Maxey. Defense is now rotating over, swing it to Eric Gordon for a wide open three-pointer. That's that connective passing, how we call it, a hockey assist sometimes in basketball. That's the connective passing that you look at. And even when you bring up Harden and Paul George making one, the connective passing, Caleb Martin is cutting backdoor, Paul George finds him, coming from the weak side on the baseline or cutting from the wing is Kelly Oubre. a nice dump off pass to him for a finish at the rim. That's connective passing that always works out. And it's always fun to see the unselfishness. And you always want to see those. Damn, they got 15 field goals 15 assists on 18 field goals.
Yep.
That's pretty darn good. And you can pinpoint some of those as the game goes along. Remember that sequence where Gordon hit Yabusele then hit McCain in the corner? Those things work out.
The all-time greats at this were the San Antonio Spurs.
100%. The unselfishness of them just having those defenses just snapping your neck, going from one station to the next and trying to get there. It's unbelievable.
Now, a lot of those guys were creative passers as well, and a lot of them could force double teams, and all of that helps make passing more effective, but they were good connective passers as well, and they played some beautiful basketball in their prime.
Phil W. says, Devon, stop. Maxey can't defend. LOL. I didn't say he could defend. I said he would use him and trust him as an extended defender 75 feet away from the basket to stay with the man and preventing him from initiating the offense, easily getting across the floor. They'll switch when they get across the half court. We know that. I'm talking about extending it out. That's all. Because Nick Nurse likes to do that. Love to do it with Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry, Pascal Siakam. He has at least 3 guys in front of Maxey where he can at least trust Maxey to pick up his man 75 feet away from the basket and just be a little bit of a pest.
Yeah.
That's all.
I'm interested to see how Maxey looks with this added ball because he's very clearly put in good work trying to add to his frame. His frame was only ever part of the problem with him defensively. Like there was a lot of miscommunications. There was a lot of awareness. Getting through screens, he struggled with at times. How much of, first of all, there's just a growth that comes with young players with experience, and a lot of that shows up defensively. So if you can combine that growth defensively with, better physicality, could he be a neutral to even possibly positive? Because he does have the chance to, move his feet on the perimeter and get deflections. Could he move up into the neutral and or slightly positive defensively? That would be huge for this team. Huge.
Yeah. Big time. That would be huge. All right, let's get to, do we have one more left? I think we have one more left, and let's get to that final one. YJ says, who is the last quote-unquote star free agent signing? Seems like our big additions are trades or draft. And
obviously,
you brought this up.
I assume he's
because of Paul George.
Not talking about Paul George, yeah.
And you brought this up when it happened with Paul George.
Yeah.
That this was the last one. And I was like, no, wait a minute, Moses. And I was like, let me catch myself. And you was like, no, that was a trade.
Yeah, it's been a long freaking time. Who would be the last? Sorry, I probably should have prepared for this one a little bit better.
I don't think you saw it. I surprised you with this one.
Okay.
You didn't see this one.
Which one?
No. The question. So.
Oh no, I saw this question.
Oh, you did?
Okay. I'm trying to remember which one was actually a
big free agent signing that was impactful.
Yeah,
because we can
out.
go to the biggest last one was Al Horford. That just didn't work out.
And then Elton Brand before that.
I would say JJ Redick.
Yeah, JJ.
Because of
he's not at the level because he was only it was a 1-year deal, right?
It was a 1-year deal, and then the second year he signed another 1-year deal. It was a balloon payment that we talk about, but it was a meaningful balloon payment because of who the guy was. And it was simply because of the fact that they were now transitioning from the young guys only and these rebuild guys like Robert Covington, TJ McConnell to an actual player who has done stuff in the postseason to show them how to get it done, show them what it means to get it done. And it was a player who said, you know what? This young team has something. I'm curious. And so I would say JJ Redick.
Yeah. No, I mean, the big money ones who you would consider stars coming in, Al Horford, Elton Brand, didn't work out.
No, it didn't.
A lot of
Martian says Gerald Henderson.
Chat. Yeah. I mean, well,
it was an interesting one because you needed some wings like that.
Well, Sergio Rodriguez, Jared Bayless.
Yeah.
Didn't really work out. Yeah. Jared Bayless was spectacularly bad. He was part of the
Amir Johnson was the same year as JJ Redick, Martian. Yes.
Oh, come on now. We're not counting Amir Johnson. JJ is one of their most successful in the last 30 years, which tells you everything you need to go about the track record.
Is that the last one though? JJ? Because of the meaningful, impactful, successful ones.
I mean, the next one might be freaking Kelly, just because it was on a minimum in terms of value. There just aren't that many. No, and that's why a lot of people we're skeptical of.
Boots says JJ Redick can't be the answer. Yes, it is.
Come up with a better one, Boots.
Yeah, Boots,
come up with
it
a better.
is.
We've got 5 minutes left in the show. You've got time. Look it up. No, I mean it is. That's why a lot of people I think were skeptical of the cap space plan, and that's why I give Daryl Morey. Sandman bringing it up. Chris Webber was a trade.
That was a trade.
That's why I give Daryl Morey a lot of credit for sticking to his beliefs and not making moves that would have added salary and might have appeased people throughout the course of the season, but would have prevented this outcome from happening because a lot of people just didn't believe it would happen. And I understand why. Like, there is not a track record of this happening in Philadelphia. This is unique where they had max cap space and an MVP caliber player and another all-star. So there was reasons to believe it would work out now when it hadn't in the past, but it was, I think a lot of people were very, very, very nervous.
Of course, we get Martian saying, you mean PJ Tucker, was it?
He was impactful, just not. That's true. We should good impact, not just impact.
Who was the worst free agent? Meaningful free agent. Is it Al Horford?
I think it is Al Horford. And Al Horford's a good player, but when you actively make the best player on the team's job more difficult, you have to give up a first-round pick to get off the contract. That first-round pick, by the way, would come in real handy right now as a trade chip. It's. I'd have to go back to like the Larry Brown era and try to think of some more that I know I'm forgetting right now.
Some bad ones?
Bad and good. I feel like there's probably 1 or 2 good ones that I could come up with, but
from
I just
the
can't
Larry
think
Brown
right
era.
Yeah.
Brian Skinner.
No, that's not gonna.
Right.
Yeah.
They're just big contracts. Greg Buckner, Kenny Thomas.
Oh, Larry loved Greg Buckner until he got him, which I feel like happens a lot with Larry.
Yeah. Those are some big contracts.
There's just not many. There's not a bunch.
Were there any other big ones? Because Kukoc was traded. Keith Van Horn, that was a trade. Todd McCullough was a trade. Yeah, those are some nasty ones. Derek Coleman. I love Derek Coleman.
McKee and Ratliff were a trade.
Yeah. George Lynch, that was a free agent pickup, right?
That might have been a free agent.
That might have been free. No, he was coming from the Grizzlies, so that might have been a trade.
Okay.
All right. Speaking of Tyrese Maxey, since we've wrapped up all the questions, did you see the Drew Hanlon tweet?
I did not.
Hang on. Because Bree is the best.
Okay.
She's got it ready. Swole.
I was just going to say, looking pretty swole.
He's
talking about
swole
Allen
on that picture, man. So that ish wasn't too heavy, as Allen Iverson likes to say, because Maxey looks swole there, does he?
No, he looks like he's definitely put in a lot of work. Didn't he joke? I don't even think it was a joke. I think he actually got tested. Didn't he mention that he got tested?
Yeah, he said he got tested.
Because everyone was making a big deal about one of his pictures.
He said he got tested.
Might get tested again.
And Drew Hanlon tweeted, seems like Tyrese just can't get enough of the gym right now. And that was Maxey Muse that said that on Twitter. So that's where I first saw it. So apologies, and make sure we say that. But Drew Hanlon is the one who put it out on Instagram. And Maxey looks swollen in that picture.
Big Dog was a trade, right?
Big Dog.
He wasn't a signing. He was a trade.
Yeah, that was a trade.
Yeah,
that was a trade.
Lasted all of a year, and then Iguodala supplanted him.
Yeah. Yep. So there you have it, man. How about that? Probably running a little silhouette to get out of here to let everybody know.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They traded Keith Van Horn for him. Talk about just duds all around.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, Keith Van Horn. Let's get a great Bree silhouette up here of a player. Who's this?
Same player, 2 images to
I know who
make
it
it a
is.
little easier.
But I'll leave it for Derek to see if he has it. I know who it is.
That's the shooting form. I feel like I should.
You
know
know
off the
it.
top
You know
of my
exactly
head.
who it is. You know exactly who. You're gonna be like, no.
That's not Markel, is it?
No. Giannis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now that Bree told me,
Yeah.
I just knew who it
No,
was.
I didn't. Yeah,
That's Giannis. That's Giannis. All right, it's time for the.
I just thought Markel was topical since we talked about him a couple times.
Absolutely. World famous roll call. What do we have here on this Friday edition of the end of the week roll call, folks?
I'll start it off with Prophet, who I know I don't shout out enough.
What up, Prophet?
In part because I muted him 100 years ago, and I've not gone back and fixed that. I really should, because he seems like he's calmed down a little
What
bit.
up, Prophet?
I appreciate you, Prophet, and I apologize for not shouting you out as much as I should. Bootzilla,
Boots.
Martian,
What up, Martian?
Eugene Ross.
Gene, what's happening?
Even though Martian spent most of the chat making fun of me, I still love you, buddy.
We love you.
I still love you. Winona.
Hey, Nona.
Spo Babby, again, seemed like he took
What
a
up,
couple
Spo Babby?
digs. That's fine. I'll shout you out. Brian Knight, Val, Scrolling up.
Hey, Val, by the way, make sure everybody you go like and subscribe and become a diehard member as we run through our world-famous
Mr.
roll
Sandman, Voodrew. See you there. Phil W. We have not seen Phil
Phil,
W
what
in a
up?
while. I appreciate having
call.
you
What kind
back
of money
in
you
the
going to
chat.
get Kelly Oubre for next year? We'll talk about it later.
A whole bunch more here as I scroll up. It was great to talk to each and every one of you here today.
All week long. We
week long.
appreciate
We will see,
everybody
and we will be back here next week too.
hanging in. So we'll be
'Cause
back.
That's how this works.
We'll be back next week. We
Rick
appreciate
Morse,
everybody.
BC.
What
Sorry,
up, Rick?
I'm still scrolling up. Still scrolling up.
Like and subscribe. Make sure you do that. You get the notification. And, of course, you get the bell icon. It sounds like that as you check in with us weekly, every day, 3 o'clock here, Monday through Friday. Remember, when the season starts, non-game days, we will be 3 o'clock right here for our show, World Famous Roll Call. But then we have post-game that we
Looking forward
back
to
at it. Derek, Kyle, Bree, myself will be here hanging out. It's going to be a great one. So everybody have a great rest of your weekend as you start your weekend off. Enjoy the weather, enjoy the football, enjoy the baseball. Big game on Monday, of course, but we'll be here to kind of preview that as Kyle will tell us to stop talking about other sports on our basketball show. It's a big game against the Atlanta Falcons on
Yes,
Monday.
it is.
Go 2-0, man. Go 2-0. So everybody have a great rest of your weekend. Appreciate it. World Famous Roll Call as always. For Derek, for Kyle, and Bree, I'm Devon. We'll talk to you on Monday. Have a great weekend.
We all silly like the mayor.